Welcome, welcome. Hello, guys. My name is Adam Hess, and this is the Hess Sports Podcast. I am streaming both on YouTube and Twitch. Just want to start off the show by doing a mic test. This is just a test for you. If you can hear me just fine, let me know. I don't know if these headsets working very well, but yeah, this is my podcast. Just let people roll in and see who comes. Um, I suppose we'll just get started. This is a sports podcast, as I said before. My name is Adam Hess, obviously. I am streaming this live on YouTube. The YouTube channel is Hess Sports, and then I am also streaming this on Twitch right here at twitch.tv/DiegoWarrior100. I wanted to take this Friday to talk about the state of affairs that the Pac-12 is going through, in a review of it, what I thought of the season as a whole for the Pac-12 as it relates to football, and then I want to get into the NFL and talk about who I think is going to win the championship games. This is kind of it's been a great season in our reality. It's just unfortunate that we had no fans this year, because there's a lot of good football this year. This sports podcast is not supposed to be. This sports podcast is respectful. It's a medium where you guys can comment, but try to be respectful in the chat and also in the comments. Sometimes our opinions don't always align, and you can think what you want, but just try to be respectful and courteous to other people in the chat. This is, as you know, the Pac-12 recently has just announced. The Pac-12 has just announced Obviously, the Pac-12 announced recently that they would part ways with their commissioner Larry Scott, and I think it's a good deal, because obviously if you read a lot of the comments on the Pac-12 just by looking around and stuff, people don't seem to like Larry Scott very much. For whatever reason. He just hasn't worked out, and I guess it's cost us national recognition. Playing later is not probably helpful for us, because a lot of people on the East Coast are in bed, and I know that shouldn't matter because we're in different time zones, but that does factor in, unfortunately. It's kind of funny how the perception of the conference changed over the years. And around, I would say, 2014 to 2016, it was thought of as a really competitive conference, because you had Stanford, you had Oregon, you had Washington State, you had USC, Utah, all of these schools, competitive, that actually had teams. And it's really unfortunate, because before it was really competitive conference, and you can't sleep on anyone, because you can lose at any given point, and that was seen as a strength. And it's kind of unfortunate that, you know, it's viewed as if you lose in this conference, it means you're a bad team. You know, I mean, let's say for the sake of argument that this, let's take a look at the SEC for example. Now I know the SEC is considered the best conference in the league, and that's not a knock against them. But there are teams just like but the SEC also has their teams in that Pac-12 has. You know, they have, you know, and the and it's kind of funny, like when they lose and stuff, it's like, oh, that's SEC competition, you know, or that, you know, and they get passes for when they lose, or sometimes lose twice in the season, you know, or most of the time, if a Pac-12 team or a Big 12 team or even a Big 10 team loses twice, you know, or once, it's like, oh, then maybe they're not so good after all. And it's unfortunate how that kind of works against the Pac-12. Like the same argument doesn't hold up for the Pac-12, because in my opinion, if you don't watch Pac-12 consistently, there are some good teams over here. And yes, you're trying to win every game because that's what they want you to do. But it shouldn't be a knock, because, you know, football doesn't work like, football's not a sport where you can, like, you know, football's a weird sport like that, you know. There are some teams in college where you're like, how did this team, where did this team come from, you know? And it's like, you know, they may be a young team or they have a new coach, but sometimes, you know, but any given week they can have their best game. You know, they can go from having the worst game to their best game, and that's just how football works, especially in college and in high school. NFL has that every so often, but there are less teams in NFL, and I guess and it's just unfortunate that, you know, the how's it going, Foxy? I am doing a sports podcast right now. This is the Hess Sports Podcast, obviously. I'm talking about the NFL. I'm talking about college football. I'm also talking about NBA. This show is being live streamed on both YouTube and Twitch. My YouTube channel that I'm streaming to is called Hess Sports. Yeah. And hey guys, stop barking. Sheesh. You can't do anything in this household. But anyway, this is being live streamed on what's up, Masterclass? DS Masterclass. I am doing a sports podcast right now. This is the Hess Sports Podcast. I am Adam Hess, and I'm doing a live stream on both YouTube and Twitch. Obviously, you're here at Diego Warrior 100 on Twitch, and I'm also streaming live to Hess Sports Podcast. We're talking about the NFL, college football. Right now I'm talking about the Pac-12 and the decision that they made to part ways with Larry Scott, and I also talked about the NBA today. As you know, the Pac-12, I don't know if you pay attention or not, but the Pac-12 recently parted ways with their commissioner, Larry Scott, and I was talking about how it's kind of funny how the perception yes. And and it's kind of funny how the perception of the conference changed over the years. You know, in in 2014, I would say around 2014 to 2016, you know, it was viewed as a really competitive conference because you had teams like Oregon, you had Stanford, you had Washington State, you had Cal, you know, you had you had USC, you had Utah, you had Arizona, all these teams that were pretty good, you know, and so it was so what and it was really competitive and people would lose and whatnot, you know, and it was like when they would lose it'd be like, oh, they're a pretty good team, that's a pretty good team that they lost to, and it's kind of weird how that perception changed over the years. So like now that they lose and Oregon's kind of fallen out and teams like Oregon and USC have kind of fallen off as well as Stanford, you know, it's kind of funny how like they lose now and it's like, oh, that's a bad conference right now. There's no reason that they should have lost that game. And if you want it, and the thing that I think is the most, and I think that thing that's unfortunate is that the SEC has teams that lose. You look at Alabama that one year where they lost twice. They didn't even win their conference. They didn't even play in their conference championship. I don't think, if I remember correctly, because they lost to Auburn, and who else did they lose to? I can't remember, but they lost twice that year, and I can't remember though. But you know, it's kind of sad how like when they lose, it's like, oh, it's competitive. Like the SEC is the most competitive conference. That is true. That's the best conference in the league because they got Alabama, they got LSU, they got Georgia and Auburn and Tennessee. Although Tennessee's kind of, you know, in the bottom of the cellar right now in the SEC, but it's unfortunate how that same logic doesn't apply to the Pac-12 because football is kind of weird sport like that. You know, sometimes you get a team that's young and has a lot of potential and stuff, and they just so happen to play their best game. You know, they're building up towards something, and they have that one game, and you're like, where did they come from? And I don't know. Sometimes you know, sometimes there are bad losses. Yes, there are bad losses, but I don't think losing. I don't think Oregon losing to Washington is something to scold people about. Is something to hold against them, or losing to a team like Utah is something to hold them against. You know, hold it against them, or you know, because Washington and Oregon is a rivalry. You know, or losing to Oregon State even. You know, my team beat the Ducks this year, and they saw it as a bad loss. Well, rivalries are tricky like that. You know, in my opinion, rivalries are, you know, like there's no way they should lose to that team, but it's a rivalry game. You know, when you go against your rivals, I don't know if you guys play sports at all, but or if you or any kind of rivalry, you know that when you eventually get to that game, it's a big game, right? So emotions are high and whatnot, and all your week is focused on beating that team because it stings when you lose to that team, you know, and and you get most of the time you get great games out of it and whatnot, and it's competitive. You know, even when teams get blown out in the rivalry games, it's usually competitive, and and I don't think there's some losses where I go, you know, that wasn't a bad loss. I thought, you know, because I've watched teams all season have bad losses that I thought were worse than that loss, but there were teams that this year that actually played pretty well, you know, and I don't think BYU losing to Coastal Carolina was a bad thing because I think because Coastal Carolina actually had a pretty good game, had a pretty good team this last year, right? So BYU losing to Coastal Carolina wasn't a bad loss in my opinion, you know. And it's kind of funny how, brands work as well, because you would think that, BYU is finally good again. They're having a great season this year. And, BYU, you know, they play as an independent, I think. Yeah, they're an independent school, but it's kind of, but BYU in the 80s was a pretty good team. They've always been a pretty decent team, right? And you know, and and you would have thought that they would have gotten more. If you want to take a look at teams like Notre Dame and whatnot, their brands, and they haven't, and Notre Dame hasn't won anything in a while. Notre Dame hasn't won the national title since 1988, I believe. That was the last time Notre Dame won theirs, and every year they get in, they get blown out. So same with Oklahoma, same with, so it's just silly how they do that. But do I think that Pac-12 got it right by deciding to move on from Larry Scott? I do. I think I'm not entirely sure how, because I think scheduling wise, like the times you schedule the games was a really big factor in that, because a lot of time, because over here we have a thing called Pac-12 After Dark, where where the last game of the night is usually the last one on, and people on the East Coast, if you're a ranked team that happens to play on Pac-12 After Dark, and it's an important game, it's a big game, and you're on the West Coast, and you're trying to get looks from the committee and whatnot for people who are who are all over, and they live on the East Coast. Well, those people are usually in bed by then, and sometimes they don't get a chance to see it unless you're on ESPN or whatnot, and this kind of works against them, because and yeah, I think it's a good idea. It's a good move. It all depends. It depends now on who takes his place, because do I think the Pac-12 Dark is a good idea? Yes, because I think it kind of highlights two of the best game, but I don't think it's the right. But sometimes I don't think it's. But I think sometimes it might be a little too late, because even over here on the West Coast where I live, I watched a couple games this year on Pac-12 After Dark, and those games didn't get done until 11 o'clock, and we're on the same coast as them. And so you can imagine people on the East Coast trying to stay up for that game, and they're getting done by by sunrise or something like that, and so I think I would say the Pac-12 should focus on trying to schedule more time slots with ESPN and whatnot, try and get big matchups on those programs, because the matchups that you believe. Here's what you should do: the matchups you believe are the most important of the season, you should try and save for the ESPN or Fox crew. Like get them on those time periods. Get them in one of those time slots. And get them on one of those time slots, and like Oregon and Washington, that should always be, that game should always be like a, the game should always be on Fox, or ESPN. The tragedy of our conference is that we have our own TV station, we have Pac-12 networks, right? And so some games of high importance get moved to that channel, and I think the Pac-12 networks. I think what the Pac-12 network should do for those games is try and avoid that as much as possible. Yes, you want to promote your. Yes, the idea is to promote your. Yes, the idea is to promote those networks, but at the same time, you want national exposure. So having the game between Washington and Oregon be on Pac-12 North is not the best idea. Or having Stanford versus Oregon not on Pac-12 networks not a very strong idea, because it'd be like if Alabama, if the SEC decided to put the game between Alabama and LSU on the SEC network only. And we know it's a national game. That's a big rivalry. They're going to square off, and people are waiting to see that. So it generates a lot of money when you lose a lot of money that way when you don't have it on the national stage. And I think that's what the Pac-12 needs to do a better job of. Because sometimes I'll be flipping through, it's like, what channel is that on again? Really? I believe regional wise, regionality wise, I think the Pac-12 networks is a good idea, but nationally, Pac-12 networks are not a good idea, because so I think most of the time, if the game is not of importance, don't include it. But you should try and vie for those national spotlights. The Pac-12 this year as a whole was pretty good to watch, pretty fun to watch. It's just unfortunate that we couldn't start when the other leagues started. But I thought the Oregon State Beavers played pretty well this year. They beat Oregon and Cal. They could have beat Washington. They should have. They got robbed. They've got a lot of youth coming in right now. They're starting to recruit now. I personally, as a Beaver fan, am very impressed with the job that Jonathan Smith is doing right now at Oregon State. He is bringing in recruits now. This year alone, we recruited the best back in Oregon. He was a 4-star recruit. His name is Demir Collins. We're starting to pull in a lot of some great recruits. We even got a few good transfers this year. We got a receiver from Georgia, a freshman receiver from Georgia, and whatnot. And it's a pretty and we're on the come up. Oregon is a weird. See, in my opinion, I think the Oregon Ducks and the Oregon State Beavers are kind of in the same boat. It's just that Oregon has better recruits, and a lot of times their recruiting is so good that when they play, their weaknesses don't really show too much, because they win more. They're able to win those games. But in reality, I think Oregon and Oregon State are kind of in the same spot. It's just that Oregon State doesn't quite have the recruits that Oregon has. And I believe that if Oregon had Oregon State's recruits and the problems that they had this year, I think they would have been worse. Like, you would have seen those problems even more so. And I know what you're saying about, and to a lot of those, and to Oregon fans, I liked what I saw from Chandler Shuck this year. In 2016, when Justin Herbert was playing, I remember you saying you should play Prukop because he's a senior and whatnot. But let's say after that Washington game, Helfrich decides to bench Herbert and go back to Prukop. Well, Herbert's not able to imagine what it would do with his confidence. Like he got his chance to start, and now he's getting benched. They want to see what they have. They want to, and obviously it worked out for Oregon. So if you pulled Tyler Shark too early, who knows what would have happened next year? Because you kind of, it's unfortunate. It's Oregon fans recently aren't used to growing pains. They if you just started watching from 2009, recently till recently, Oregon's been pretty good over the years, right? So you guys haven't really struggled very much, and it's kind of weird when you, and it's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird for Oregon fans to lose. They're not used to it, except for the old fans. Because they've known, because if the people that have always been Oregon fans know that there were times when Oregon wasn't the best school. In the conference, they weren't at the top. They were going to bowl games like the Liberty Bowl, and that was as good as it was. They would have sometimes teams. Sometimes they would have years where they were really good, but it was never consistent like that. So I think all in all, Shark will be fine. I did like some throws that I think he has a pretty good arm. It's just his decision making is something that he'll have to work on, because I will say, like, watching that Oregon State game versus Oregon, there were a couple of times where I thought, oh, that guy's open, and the guy didn't see it. Like, hoping that Tyler Shark does not see that guy that open, because if he does, then too many times. One of the things about a young quarterback is one of the things you got to get better at is reading the field. Like, don't have in your mind pre-snap who you're going to go to immediately, because on that one interception that he threw in that game, you could see that he knew in his mind where he was going right away, and it was not a good decision. It cost him, and it allowed the Oregon State Beavers to get back into the game. And when he just needed a first down, he did not get a first down. He made the wrong play. But I watched the Cal Oregon game a week later, before Oregon State played Utah, and I in the second quarter there were a couple of nice throws that Shark made in that game. He threw one wide up the rail to one of the receivers, and you saw a nice little flurry of scores, of touchdowns, some nice throws too. And I think Shark's got a good future ahead of him. You'll need an off season. We didn't, like, none of the teams this year really got an off season. They were doing. They did have an off season, but most of the time they were in Zoom calls with their coaches and whatnot, and they weren't really able to get on the field, because they would go to practice and then they'd be like, oh, sorry, we can't, we were closed, whatnot, and that's really hard. I think now that they can have a full off season, I think Oregon will be just fine. It's just that, in my opinion, this is the kind of the thing that I've been seeing lately from Oregon fans. Do you think that Mario Cristobal is the right guy? He recruits good. He recruits really good, but But sometimes it looks like Mario Cristobal leaves a lot to be desired on the football field. In 2019, when they had a chance to go to the playoffs, in Utah, and it was them in Utah at the end. There were times throughout that season where I watched, Oregon, and I looked at the scores, and I was like, only 17. Oh, they only scored 17 points versus Cal, and I know that Cal's got a good defense. But there are times even against the weaker opponents where Oregon left a lot of points a lot of points on the board, and it seems to me that what Mario Cristobal wants to do is he wants to get out to a lead early, and then he goes to conservative. Well, sooner or later, that other team, if they're good enough, they're gonna make adjustments. They're gonna make adjustments, and if you're not careful, they'll beat you. And that's exactly what happened against Arizona State. That's exactly what happened against Auburn. And I think Oregon, and just too conservative, in my opinion, because this year when they played Cal, I was watching it I was following it on my phone, because I hadn't turned it on yet. But Oregon first drive of the game went all the way down and to the goal line, and Cal at this point hadn't won a game yet. So Cal was 0-3 at this point. Oregon was just coming off of the Oregon State loss to the Beavers, and Oregon went right down the field, and they got 4th and goal at the 5 or whatnot, or 1 yard line or 2 yard line. And what does Cristobal decide to do? He decides to kick it and go for the field goal. Yes, you get 3 points on that play, but Cal has a good defense, and what you got to understand by Cal is that field goal that you kicked is a win for Cal, because it's not 7. I think if Mario Cristobal decides, because I think if Oregon goes up 7-0 at that point, I think it shows Cal that Oregon's not losing today, because Cal doesn't have enough offense, or it took Cal a while to score. Well, let me pull up that game real fast. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Let's see here. So Cal versus Oregon. See, they kicked off. Tyler Shuck, Oregon gets the ball first. Tyler Shuck passed to Jalen Red to the right for 10-yard gain. Travis Dybrush for 6-yard gain. Or no, they didn't punt. Or they punted, but they had a chance, but they got all the way to the goal line. Second drive of the game. Here it is. Second drive of the game. Tyler Shuck passed to Micah Pittman for 11-yard gain, 6-yard gain, 5-yard gain, 12-yard gain, 18-yard gain, and they get all the way up to the 3-yard line, and 4th and goal at 8:51, and they kick a field goal. That's a win for Cal, because sometimes there's points in a game where a touchdown needs to happen. I believe a field goal at that juncture is a concession. We're just trying to get points right now. Conservative, play conservative. we took an early lead, 3 points. That's good, but that's a win for Cal because now Cal has a chance to take the lead, and that gives confidence to Cal. They and I think at that point and there's a lot of people that thought the same thing that I did. There are people who thought that Cristobal should have pulled his pants up and win for it there. Because it shows that we're not going to back down, even if you don't get it. It says we're coming right for you, and we're trying to put you away right now because when you're playing against a team that's 0-3 or hasn't won a game yet, it's very important that you shut the door right away, right? Because the longer you leave them in the game, the more opportunities that they get to actually try and do something with it, and that's how upsets happen. The longer you mess around, the more likelihood it is for you to lose, and that's exactly what happened to Oregon. Washington was a pretty good team this year. Utah was a pretty good team this year. It's unfortunate that their running back got into a cart, died. Utah's freshman running back Ty Jordan was killed after the season. He didn't. No one killed him, but it's unfortunate because he was a really good back. He had a breakout game for the Utah Utes against Oregon State, and yeah. But I think the Pac-12 as a whole was pretty fun this year, competitive. But I think next year with an off season and a preseason, if we even get to that point, will be. I think you'll see a better product next year for most of the teams. Next up, I want to talk about the NFL, and this is where I will try and record now. Right now, welcome back to, and this is for those of you watching. This is the Hess Sports Podcast on twitch.tv/Diego Warrior100 and also live streaming on YouTube at Hess Sports. This is the show where I talk about the NFL, college football, and the NBA. My name is Adam Hess, and I hope you like and subscribe if you like what you see here. Consider leaving a follow and make sure you comment if you. But keep it respectful and courteous. But anyway, now is the NFL section of the NFL section of the show. This week is obvious. This season, in my opinion, has been a really fun season to watch. There was a lot of great stories this year. Tom goes from New England to Tampa Bay. A lot of moves were made this year, and it was fun this year. It's just unfortunate that we didn't have any fans this year because there was a lot of good football this year. If you look at last year, we only had 10 teams last year win 12 or more games last year. 9 or 10 teams last year that won 10 or more games. This year, we had 13 teams win 10 or more games this year. That's a lot of teams that won 10 games, and we also had a much more competitive AFC and NFC this year because we had Buffalo, we had the Miami Dolphins that were pretty good this year, but Dolphins started out pretty hot this year, and then they kind of cooled down, and we'll see what they decide to do with Tua. But I would say you keep him because because you drafted him so high. If you trade him now, you kind of waste that pick, in my opinion. I think Tua's got a lot. Yes, Tua's got a lot of work to do, but so does everyone else. Um, there were some good things. There was some good things about Justin Herbert this year, although there's some things that he has to work on. And I think, and would you take Deshaun Watson over Tua? Probably. But let's say you bring in Deshaun Watson and it doesn't work out. And he gets injured or something like that. Now you don't have, you know, you do you bring in Deshaun Watson this year? Who knows? But I would say you stay put with Tua. I do, because some quarterbacks take time to mold into that quarterback that you thought you were going to get. It's very rare that a quarterback right off the bat, rookie year, takes plays well like Justin Herbert. That's an anomaly. That's an anomaly. That doesn't happen most of the time. Patrick Mahomes. It took Patrick Mahomes a year sitting behind Alex Smith. Before they moved on from Alex Smith, and I think, and would Mahomes have been a better option year one as a rookie? Who knows? Because he was a rookie at that point, and I think sitting behind Alex and letting him watch how he handles the NFL was good for Patrick Mahomes, because he got to see how plays are done and get into a routine in the NFL, because as opposed to college where you have a routine kind of, and you're kind of going to class and whatnot, and you have a routine schedule. In the NFL, you're kind of your own man. You're your own man now, so you have a lot of new responsibilities to take care of. You have bills to pay and stuff, and houses to do, and you have to learn how to do all that stuff, and go to practice and whatnot, and and learn how to be a pro in the NFL. And I think a lot of times that's what it takes rookie. And that's sometimes what I think people need sometimes. The surprise team, one of the teams that I've been high on all year, was the Buffalo Bills. Last year, before the season started, I had a podcast called Has Sports Podcast that I did before the season, before I went out to Oregon State, and I kind of stopped it, and I'm trying to bring it back now. But last year I said but last year as I was making my predictions on who I thought would be in the playoffs last year, one of the surprise teams that I thought could be pretty good last year was the Buffalo Bills. And the reason for that is the previous year I watched Buffalo win games by a lot and then lose games by a lot. And it was kind of a weird, and it's kind of weird watching that, because they would blow one team out one game, and then the next game they would turn around, or they lose a close game, and they went 7-9, I think, and whatnot. And I said that the Buffalo Bills, and I said watch out for the Buffalo Bills, because I think they could be even better next year in 2019, from the 2019 season to the the 1920 season. And sure enough, they made the playoffs. Another team that I was high on last year was the 49ers, and they also made the playoffs. They went to the Super Bowl. And so, this year I thought the Buffalo Bills could be even better. And because with their addition of Stephon Diggs, who has been a pretty good player for them, added a lot to that Buffalo Bills team. Josh Allen got a lot better this year. I think he should be I think he is I think he's better than Baker Mayfield. But he's been a surprise this year. You know, um, I don't think people really. I don't really think people thought he would improve that much, mechanics wise. And it's really nice to see that the Buffalo Bills are having a good season this year. They're one step away from the Super Bowl, which is something that I'm sure Bills fans never thought would happen. Because I mean, at least not at the start of the year. And if the Buffalo Bills beat Kansas City, it'll be the first time since 1993 that the Buffalo Bills will represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. The Buffalo Bills the Buffalo Bills last Super Bowl was one of 4 that they lost. The Buffalo Bills are infamous for going to 4 straight Super Bowls, the most Super Bowls in a row for any one team. No team has ever been to the Super Bowl 4 times in a row other than the Bills. But Bills are the only team to do that. The Buffalo Bills are also the only team to lose all 4 Super Bowls. They lost the first one to the New York Giants when they kicked it wide right. And then they lost to the Redskins, and then they lost to the Cowboys twice. And then they were one of the first teams to modernize the offense because they went more of a up tempo kind of deal with Jim Kelly as their quarterback and Thurman Thomas and whatnot and Andre Reed, and they had a great defense with they was anchored by Bruce Smith, if I'm remembering my teams correctly. But the Bills have been kind of in the basement for a lot of years. In part mainly due to the success of the Patriots. I think the Bills. Let's see. The Bills. Let's see. The Bills versus the Patriots has not been because the Buffalo Bills versus the Patriots has not been very, very good. Patriots have won the Patriots have won the majority of them. The Buffalo Bills prior to this season were 1, 2, 3. Hold on. See, the Buffalo Bills were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 against Bill Belichick. They won six times. They won 6 times before this season against the Patriots, and most of the times it's been blowouts the other way around. So Buffalo Bills haven't really had much. Neither have the Dolphins, and we know what the Jets are. They're bad. But who knows? They appear to have found their guy, and they brought in a coach from Shanahan's coaching tree from San Francisco, the guy who West Coast, one of the West Coast guys. And so we'll see what they do there. But it's really fun to see that the Buffalo. It's really cool to see the Buffalo Bills having success this year. This weekend is obviously the championship week. We got the Kansas City Chiefs playing the Buffalo Bills this week, or for the right to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. And then in the NFC, you've got the Buccaneers versus the Green Bay Packers in the NFC. We'll see how. I think the Buffalo Bills have the thing. I don't know. People are saying it's a wash that the Chiefs will beat the Bills. I'm not so sure because we'll have to see how Mahomes feels, because last week he went down with a concussion, in the third quarter, and we'll see how he plays. He cleared the concussion protocol and whatnot, but we'll have to see the lingering effects of that, and we'll see how careful they are with him. I don't see them moving him around outside of the pocket much, and I think the Buffalo Bills do have the necessary weapons to beat them. I think what the Buffalo Bills should focus on this week is trying to run the ball. I think establishing the run early could be the key for the Buffalo Bills. You saw how the Cleveland Browns start to have success with their run against Kansas City, and they had success. So, who I think is going to win? Kansas City is the favorite, but I think the Bills might beat them. I think the Bills might beat them. And then in the NFC, you have the Green Bay Packers going against the Buccaneers. It's very hard to pick against Tom Brady. It is, but I think the fact that this game is at Lambeau Field, I think that's a really big advantage for Green Bay, because this time of year in January, it's very cold in Wisconsin, and unless you constantly playing in that weather, you're not used to it. So I think the weather in Green Bay will prove to be advantageous for them. So I think the Packers will beat the Buccaneers this year, and I think it'll be the Bills versus the Packers in the Super Bowl. I think that because the Buccaneers defense is kind of weird. Some games they play really well. The Buccaneers play really well sometimes on defense. They got names on defense. So do the Packers. But sometimes, but so we'll have to see what kind of defense the Buccaneers have that day. If I think the Packers, the Packers and Buccaneers have already played each other this year. It was a beatdown by the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers beat them earlier this year, 38-10. I don't see that happening again. I think that was kind of a gut check for the Packers, because since that game it's been, their losses haven't been as bad. But it's really hard to beat it. It's really hard to beat a team two times in a row, and it's even harder to beat them 3 times in a row. But I think the Packers are good enough. I think it depends on how well Tom Brady plays, because the Packers are going to have to get pressure on him, But I just think that the Packers have what it takes to beat the Buccaneers. It's hard. It's very difficult to pick Tom Brady, or it's very hard to pick against Tom Brady because it's Tom Brady. But I think the fact that it's at Lambeau Field gives the Packers the advantage. Because the Buccaneers play in Florida, where it's warm and sunny, and it's very and it's and who knows, but that'll be a good game, I think. Next up, I want to talk about the. And by the way, if you're enjoying this, this is the rebirth. This is the relaunch of my sports podcast. Right now, I'm streaming on both Twitch and YouTube. I am recording this part. I'm streaming at twitch.tv/Diego Warrior 100, and then also on my Hess Sports YouTube channel called Hess Sports. If you like the content, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and help it grow. Also, if you're watching live on Twitch, make sure to hit that follow button. We're trying to get that elusive affiliate badge. Anyway, next up I want to talk about the NBA, and mainly the about the Nets and what I see from the Nets. It's kind of in the sport of basketball, talent wins you a lot of games, but it's how the talent fits together, in my opinion, that can make or break the team. Because on paper, you see the Nets have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. That's a pretty good team. Those three together is a pretty good team. But James Harden is not much of a defender. He got better over the years in Houston, but I wouldn't say he's the best defender. And neither is Kyrie Irving. Kevin Durant's probably the best defender out of the big three. But some of the talent that they gave up to acquire James Harden was defense. And if you've been listening to guys like Kenny Beecham, who's got a YouTube channel called King of the Fourth Quarter, and Kenny For Real, he's talked about how the NBA, how the Nets, how he thought the Nets would struggle with defense. They're kind of struggling with defense, and now with the addition of James Harden, you'll see that'll be even more the case, because right now it looks like the way the Nets win is that they're gonna have to outscore everyone, because they're struggling to stop anyone. Like yesterday they played, on Wednesday, the first game between the first game with all three together, they played the Cavaliers and lost 147-135 in double overtime. Well, that's good and all, but the Cavaliers are statistically the worst offense in the league. And the fact that, and I think they have and I think I heard that they had, and I heard on Undisputed today or when I watched it, that was the word that the Cavaliers have the best offensive rating for a game. It's an NBA record, I think. And I think last year the Dallas Mavericks had that feat. But in my opinion, it's not a good look. But the loss, even though I don't think there'll be much losses from here on out, because I think the Nets will find a way to play defense eventually. But right now they got to figure out how the rotations work. And one of the things that Kenny Beecham said, and I kind of agree with him on this, is the fact that James Harden, one of the things that James Harden got to do, and this is what Kenny Beecham said, was that he's gonna, like, when he plays with the bench, when he plays with the bench, it's his team at that point. It should be how he should play, like he's in Houston. When Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant go to the bench and he stays out with the second unit, that should be, he should play like he's in Houston, and that'll come with time. But they got to find a way to play defense. One of the other teams that I think is surprising people is the Golden State Warriors, as well as the New York Knicks. The Warriors, I think, are building something again. It's unfortunate that Klay Thompson went down again before the season started with another ACL tear. After the season again, because he's one of the greatest shooters of all time, next to Steph Curry. But they've been playing better this year. They're not the Warriors of last year. I mean, I don't know how. I haven't really watched much of them, but they're pulling out some of these games. They came back against the Lakers and whatnot. Well, we have yet to see what Andrew Wiggins, if this is we'll have to see if this is, Steph Curry's averaging 28.2 points per game right now. Wiggins is 17.7. They're getting some good production out of these players. Kurt, they're shooting well. But I think they're playing well. They're not quite yet the same team they were a couple years ago, but I think last year they were so young and went out and so riddled with injuries that it was kind of a wash. I think the Warriors are definitely a force now. They're not a team you can sleep on this season. They still got a lot of work to do, obviously. Obviously, Draymond Green's still there, and Steph Curry's still there, and whatnot. But you definitely can't sleep on them. And I think that's something that people aren't talking about in the mainstream media. Like, the thing that bugs me about the mainstream media with regards to sports is that they'll talk about when a team loses that they'll say they only talk about why that team lost. They rarely give credit to the other team. Would last year's Warriors team have been able to do that against the Lakers last year? If let's say if the Warriors had the same team last year that they had, if the Warriors had last year's team this year, would they have been able to do that this year against the Lakers? Probably not. That's a blowout with all the injuries. But Warriors are, as long as you have Steph Curry and whatnot, Draymond Green, I think that's a testament to how great they are because we've seen a lot of times the Warriors come back on opponents. I believe a couple years ago they were down, what was it, 24 against the Clippers, I believe, right? 24 points against the Clippers, and they came back in that game, and so it's not like they're not capable of doing it. I mean, they don't. I mean. Knicks are also impressing Knicks are also playing pretty well. They're 8-8. They just beat the Warriors last night. They beat the Warriors yesterday, but the Knicks are looking pretty good. are impressing people. R.J. Barrett looks like a good draft pick for them. Julius Randle seems to be playing well for them also. I'm looking at their roster right now. We're looking at their team right now. They got R.J. Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, Julius Randle, Elfrid Payton, Reggie Bullock, Aaron Burks. They got Nerlens Noel, Obi Toppin, Kevin Knox, and Emmanuel Quickley. That's a solid team. It's a young team, obviously, and it might end up being the Nets of last year. You know, that's kind of middling and whatnot. And I would say that they're probably doing pretty well right now too. Will it last though? It remains to be seen because Knicks fans know this all too well. They've been it's been a while since they've had a team that competes. So unless they make the playoffs this year, unless they keep winning, it'll be the same old Knicks for most people. And I think Knicks fans deserve some sort of success because it's been a while since they've done anything. Yeah. This is I want to think, right, guys. This is kind of the relaunch. Next, as the weeks go by, this show will get better and better. This is kind of the relaunch and whatnot of the podcast, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. This has been the Hess Sports Podcast. Make sure you leave a like on the YouTube page or subscribe if you liked it. Share with your friends. Leave a comment. Let me know if you agree with any of my takes. But be respectful and kind to people in the YouTube section. It's okay to disagree with people. Just make sure you're respectful. We can have a respectful discussion in the channel. You're also watching this on twitch.tv/GigaWarrior100. Consider following me and help me reach that affiliate. This is probably going to be the setup for a while. I will be doing both on Twitch and YouTube. This section that you see will be will be on the YouTube. But thank you for watching today. I will be back probably Monday or whenever I work, whenever my next free day is off. Whenever I'm off, that'll be the next time I do this. Cause I got work coming up. But yeah, thank you for watching. This has been the Hess Sports Podcast on twitch.tv/DeagleWarrior100 and also Hess Sports on YouTube. Thank you for watching.